Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we take up additional reference of business and request the Secretary General to read the title of the bills and resolutions on first reading as well as communication. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The Chair hears none. Secretary General is directed.
Additional reference of business, bills on first reading, House Bill 8853, regulating the manufacturing, importation, and use of single-use plastic products and providing penalties, levies, and incentive systems for industries, business enterprises, and consumers thereof. Representative Gasataya.
To the Committee on Ecology.
House Bill 8855, regulating habal-habal and other motorcycle services. Representative Campos.
To the Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 8856, increasing the bed capacity of the Bicol Regional Training and Teaching Hospital from 250 to 800, upgrading its facilities and augment its hospital staff. Representative Salceda.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill 8859, requiring government officials in charge of public transportation to ride public transport at least once a month. Representative Castelo.
To the Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 8860, granting Philippine citizenship to Roderick Micking Hall. Representative Lechon.
To the Committee on Justice.
Resolutions. House Resolution 2420, directing the House Committee on People's Participation to exercise its oversight function to review and study SEC Memorandum Circular Number 15, Series of 2018, or the guidelines for the protection of SEC-registered non-profit organizations from money laundering and terrorist financing. Representative Zarate, Tino, Castro France, and Casilao.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2421, strongly urging the DILG and other appropriate government agencies, including the COMELEC, to investigate, inquire, and streamline the application process of exemption of security personnel from the PNP Police Security and Protection Group in view of the upcoming 2019 elections. Representative Ortega Vininola.
To the Committee on Public Order and Safety.
House Resolution 2422, expressing sincere condolences and profound sympathies of the House on the passing of Henry C. Sr., the founder of SM Investments Corporation. Representative Vargas.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2423, congratulating and commending Senator Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao for successfully defending his WBA regular welterweight title by unanimous decision in front of a sellout crowd in MGM Grand, Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Representative Vargas.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2424, calling for an investigation by the appropriate committee of the House on the $37 billion worth of consultancy contracts bid out by the DBM. Representative Suarez.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2425, directing the Committees on Labor and Employment and Human Rights to inquire the killing of Danny Boy Bautista, agriculture worker of Subimoto. Representative Casilao, Zarate, among others.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2427, directing the Committees on Agrarian Reform and Human Rights to inquire into February 20, 2018 violent demolition of houses of potential farmer beneficiaries of land distribution. Representative Casilao, Zarate, De Jesus, Tino, Brosas, Castro France, and Ilago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2428, directing the Committees on Agrarian Reform to inquire into the lethargic implementation of land distribution by the DAR of the 75.5 hectare productive agricultural lands located at Barangay San Mateo, Norzagaray, Taon, Bulacan Province. Representatives Casilao, Zarate, De Jesus, Tino, Brosas, Castro France, and Ilago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2429, directing the Committee on Human Rights to inquire on the SEMPO conducted on December 27, 2018 by the combined elements of the PNP Staff Regional Office 7 and the 94th Infantry Battalion of the Philippine Army that resulted in the killing of 6 individuals and arrests of 27, mostly of various progressive organizations in Gihulngan City and towns in Mabina and Santa Catalina, Negros Oriental. Representatives Casilao, Zarate, De Jesus, Tino, Brosas, Castro France, and Ilago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2430, expressing the sense of the House in support and commitment to address the dire working and living conditions of Hanjin heavy industries and construction workers in Subic, Zambales. Representatives Ilago, Zarate, Tino, and Casilao.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Resolution 2431, congratulating and commending Senator Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao for successfully defending his WBA welterweight title, defeating Adrian Groner at the MGM Grand. Representative Nieto.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2432, expressing deepest condolence for the passing of Mr. Henry C., considered as the father of Philippine retail on January 19, 2019. Representative Nieto.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 2433, directing the Committee on Agriculture and Food, the Special Committee on Food Security, and the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries to inquire on the 85 million loan grant by the Land Bank of the Philippines to distressed corporation Hanjin Heavy Industries. Representative Chavez.
To the Committee on Rules.
Message from the Senate. Message dated January 21, informing the House that the Senate on even date passed without amendment House Bill numbers 8380, 8381, 8382, and 7206.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee reports. Report number 1073 of the Committee on Trade Industry on House Bill number 8862.
To the Committee on Rules.
Report number 1074 of the Committee on Games and Amusement on House Resolution number 1698.
Committee on Rules.
Report number 1075 of the Committee on Natural Resources on House Bill number 8864.
Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we welcome the guests of Federico Sandoval II, Representative Sandoval, his classmate from New York Maritime College, Ms. Heidi Benedict.
The guests of the Honorable Sandoval, please rise. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of a message from the Senate informing the House that the Senate has passed with amendments House Bill number 8055, entitled An Act Dividing the Province of Palawan into 3 provinces, namely Palawan del Norte, Palawan Oriental, and Palawan del Sur. We have been advised that the Committee on Local Government, sponsor of House Bill number 8055, as well as the authors thereof, have no objections to the amendments introduced by the Senate to the said House Bill. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with our rules, I move that we concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill number 8055. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the change of referral to the following measures. House Bill numbers 1308, 4638, 7035, and 7821, institutionalizing the giving of graduated cash gifts to senior citizens, from the Committee on Population and Family Relations to the Committee on Senior Citizens.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The same is approved.
I also move for the change of referral of House Bill number 2382, declaring July 25 of every year as the National Campus Press Freedom Day, from the Committee on Public Information to the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The same is approved.
Furthermore, we move for the change of referral of House Bill numbers 3473 and 8028, providing for the prevention and treatment of drug and alcohol abuse among high-risk youth, from the Committee of Dangerous Drugs to the Committee on Youth and Sports Development.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Move for the change of referral of House Bill number 6448, establishing the Philippine Geriatric Center Research and Training Institute, from the Committee on Health to the Committees on Government Reorganization and Health.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Change of referral is approved.
We move for the change of referral of House Bill number 8473, exempting senior citizens from the payment of real property tax under certain conditions, from the Special Committee on Senior Citizens and Committee on Ways and Means to the Special Committee on Senior Citizens and Committee on Local Government.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Move for the change of referral of House Bill number 8763, regulating the use of roads for safe, fast, and economic transport, from the Committee on Transportation to the Committee on Public Works and Highways.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Move for the change of referral of House Bill number 8723, strengthening the protection and management of waterways and water systems by host communities, from the Committee on Natural Resources to the Committee on Ecology.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Finally, I move for the change of referral of House Resolution number 1756, resolution directing the Committee on Muslim Affairs to conduct an inquiry in the aid of legislation to determine the present state of Bangon Marawi Comprehensive Rehabilitation and Recovery Program as mandated by Administrative Order number 3, as amended, creating an interagency task force for the recovery, reconstruction, and rehabilitation of the city of Marawi and other affected localities, from the Committee on Public Works and Highways to the Committee on Disaster Management. So moved.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, under the calendar of unfinished business, I move that resume consideration of House Bill number 8858 and request the Secretary General to read the title of the measure.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The Secretary
Mr.
General is
Speaker.
directed.
Mr. Speaker,
House Bill 8858, an act expanding the scope of the juvenile justice and welfare system and strengthening the social reintegration programs for children in conflict with law, amending for the Purpose Republic Act number 9344 as amended, otherwise known as the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act of 2006.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
our first
point of order.
the first interpolator for this afternoon.
Just a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Kong Villarin. Can we recognize Kong Villarin for the point of order?
The Honorable Villarin is recognized.
Well, Mr. Speaker, last night there was a motion to adjourn, no? And that motion has not yet been, the one who moved for that has not yet taken out that motion. So I inquire, no, if we have to call the roll first, no, before we proceed with discussing, no, the proposed legislative measure.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the gentleman was not listening last night that his motion to adjourn or the motion of any member of the House of Representatives to adjourn was overtaken or superseded by the motion of this representation to suspend proceedings. And upon motion of this representation, the hearing officer or the presiding officer granted my motion. Thus, the motion to adjourn was already rendered moot and academic.
Then my motion now, Mr. Speaker, would be I move to call for the rolls, if not before we proceed with the discussion of the
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the proceeding.
Session suspended. May number.
Suspend yan until they get a quorum.
Dahan-dahan lang, Mr. Majority. Makukuha natin ang mainit.
Nakikusap lang sila.
Lahat ng klaseng targado na rin how to justify their distorted notion. Hold on muna tayo. Anytime. Hold on ulit.
Ay, boss, pare.
Nakita ko yung liquid gas sa I want a part of it, you know, yung mga nakayo na to. Ito to, hindi. Mamaya will ko na. So, why na rin? So, tagay yung lumig gamay sa methane gas.
Bisag pag lima na ako dun, pangalan mo ako sa akin. Number 1 ko siya.
May tagay yung lumig konbek, may tagay yung lumig gamay muna kasi sa punta may resort na to. Ano yung ginawa ko doon? Ayun. Balik tatlong entity niya.
Session is resumed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we call the roll of members.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Secretary General is directed to call the roll of the members.
Roll call of members. Honorable Representatives Abaya, Abayon, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg, Acharon, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agarao, Agabao, Albano, Alcala, Alejano, Almario, Almonte, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Mercedes, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante, Amatong, Andaya, Angara Castillo, Antonino, Antonio, Aquino Magsaysay, Aragones, Arbizon, Arcillas, Arenas, Atienza, Aumentado, Bagao, Bagatsing, Bagilat, Banal, Barbers, Barzaga, Batawil, Bautista Bandigan, Belaro, Belmonte Feliciano, Belmonte Jose Christopher, Belmonte Ricardo, Benitez, Bernos, Bertiz, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo Anthony, Bravo Maria Vida, Brosas, Bulit Bectang, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto Rubiano, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Cari, Casilaw, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredinil, Catamco, Cayetano, Celeste, Seráfica, Ceriles, Chavez, Chipeco, Coanco, Collantes, Cortés, Cortuna, Cosalan, Crisólogo, Cuba, Cuaresma, Cueva, Dalipe, Datol, Daza, De Jesús, De Venecia, Defensor, Del Mar, Del Rosario, Del Oso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Mohammed Khalid, Duavit, Durano, Di, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Eusebio, Evardone, Fariñas, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Ferriol, Floirendo, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Fuentebella, Garbin, Garces, Garcia Gwendolyn, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Albano, Garin Oscar, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Heron, Go Ana Cristina, Go Mark, Gomez, Gonzaga, Gonzalez Alexandria, Gonzalez Aurelio, Gonzalez Fernando, Goriseta, Gullias, Hernandez Ferdinand, Hernandez Paul, Herrera D, Hoffer, Halushos, Javier, Ko, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lagman, Lanete, Laogan, Lazatin, Leachon, Lee, Lim Kai Chong, Lobregat, Lopez Benher, Lopez Carlo, Lopez Manuel, Loyola, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Manalo, Mangawang, Mangudadato Suharto, Mangudadato Sajid, Marcoleta, Marcos, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matugas, Meliana, Mending, Mendoza, Mercado, Mirasol, Montoro, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Nolasco, Núñez Malanyaon, Oamenal, Ocampo, Olivares, Ong Edwin, Ong Henry, Ortega Pablo, Ortega Vininola, Pacquiao, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panganiban, Panotes, Papandayan, Pichay, Pico, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Primicias Agabas, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Ramos, Relampagos, Revilla, Roapuno, Robes, Rocamora, Rodriguez Isidro, Rodriguez Maximo, Roman, Romuero, Romualdez, Romualdo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sahali, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Salon, Sambar, Sandoval, Sangcopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento Cesar, Sarmiento Edgar Mary, Savellano, Sema, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Swansing Estelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez, C. Alvarado, Tambunting, Tan Angelina, Tan Milagrosa, Tan Sherney, Tejada, Teves, Tianco, Ting, Tiño, Tolentino, Treñas, Tugna, Tupas, Ti, Umali, Unabia, Ungab, Unico, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Uy Barreta, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velarde, Velasco, Velasco Catera, Veloso, Vergara, Villafuerte, Villanueva, Villaraza Suárez, Villarica, Villarin, Violago, Yap Arthur, Yap Melesio, Yap Victor, Yu Divina, Zamora Maria Carmen, Zamora Ronaldo, Zarate, Zubiri. The Honorable Speaker is present. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows that 164 members responded to the call.
With 164 members responding to the call, the Chair declares the presence of the quorum. Majority Leader.
Suspend muna. Suspend muna.
Move to suspend, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended. Session is assumed. Session is assumed.
Before we go on, Mr. Speaker, we'd like to acknowledge the guests in the gallery, starting off with His Excellency Rafael Harpas, the Ambassador of Israel to the Philippines, guest of the Honorable Deputy Speaker Rosemary Arenas of the 3rd District of Pangasinan.
The guests of the Honorable Arenas, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
We also have Ms. Evelyn Fantilanan, Ms. Ellie Fantilanan, guests of the 2nd Congressional District Representative of South Cotabato, the Honorable Ferdinand Hernandez, Deputy Speaker.
The guests of the Honorable Deputy Speaker, welcome to the House of Representatives.
Ms. Armina Belez Salyamas, Manager of Public Relations Office of Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, is here with her party. Guests of the Honorable Anthony Bravo of the Co-op NATCO party list.
The guests of the Honorable Bravo, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we resume consideration of the House Bill number 8858 on second reading. May we once again ask the Secretary General to read the title of the bill. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection?
Mr. Speaker, objection.
The Honorable Villarin is recognized.
Well, Mr. Speaker, before we continue with the discussions on the suspended bill, may I move for a reconsideration of the approval of the rules, House rules, the amended House rules that was approved yesterday. It's a motion for reconsideration of the approval of the House rules that was tackled prior to the discussions on this bill.
Suspend. Mr. Speaker, 1 minute suspension.
Session suspended.
Mr. Speaker,
Session is resumed.
Session. On the matter of reconsideration, Mr. Speaker, I move that we divide the House. On the matter on whether we will reconsider what we approved last night or
Mr.
not.
Speaker, another point of order. Can we get a copy of the amended House rules that was approved?
Copy has
last
already
year?
been distributed a long time ago, Mr. Speaker.
Well, we don't have the minutes or journal of the House proceedings.
Mr. Speaker, there is a motion, and we are already in the process of voting.
Mr. Speaker, before we even proceed to voting, this representation also would like to ask, ano po ba yung ating inamend na rule? Can't we even mention it so that we can vote all wisely on the issue?
One minute suspension, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended.
Hindi. Mr. Speaker, I move to resume session.
Session is resumed.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status is there is a pending motion on the motion to reconsider what was amended last night on the matter of rules of the House. Mr. Speaker, copies of this amendment has already been distributed to the members of the House a long time ago, and therefore there is no need for them to be briefed or to be informed what were the amendments. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, I move that
Mr.
we now
Speaker,
vote on the
Mr.
matter
Speaker.
of motion for reconsideration.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, there is a pending motion. The only thing that they can do now against those who want to oppose is whether to oppose or not. And if there is an opposition, we will consider that in the votation. Mr. Speaker, I so move that now we vote on the motion for reconsideration.
There is a motion to reconsider the adoption of the House rules of rules of the House of Representatives. All those in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay.
Nay!
The nays have it. The motion is defeated. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 8858. Once again, may we request the Secretary
Mr.
General
Speaker,
to read,
Mr. Speaker,
to read a copy of the title of the bill and so move, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker,
Secretary General is directed.
House Bill number 8858, an act expanding the scope of the juvenile justice and welfare system and strengthening the social reintegration programs for children in conflict with the law, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 9344 as amended, otherwise known as the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act of 2006.
Mr. Speaker, the status of our parliamentary status as we are in the period of interpellations, I move that we recognize for his interpellation the Honorable Lito Atienza of Buhay Party List. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Chancellor is recognized for 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Madam Majority Floor Leader. Yes, with the kind indulgence of the sponsor, we would like to participate in the interpellation period to ask him questions, more questions on the wisdom and the practicality and the effectivity of this law.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, gladly.
Mr. Speaker, we have a provision in our Constitution under the Bill of Rights, Article 3, Section 19, subsection 2, that every citizen has a right to human standards and proper environment in his detention. Otherwise, the law, they shall be dealt with by the law. Ang tanong ko po kay magalang-galang Lechon, ito po bang provision na ito, ano po ba ang pagkakaintindi ninyo? That every citizen has that basic right under the Bill of Rights to a condition that is not subhuman, not substandard. Otherwise, they shall be dealt with by law.
Mr. Speaker, of course, our good friend from Buhay Party List, Congressman Lito Atienza, in the words of the Constitution, as you stated, particularly under the Bill of Rights, is quite very clear and quite self-explanatory. Every Filipino has the right to have a human living condition. Under humane or human living condition, and of course, shall be protected by law. In fact, parenthetically, under Article 15 of the Constitution, which mandates the protection of children, in the same way I had my message during the time that we approved it at the committee level, it was quite very clear that there's only one way or a foundation for which we will be standing on in the promotion and in the request for the approval of this amendatory bill. And that is for the protection, for the protection and welfare of our youth and our children. Mr. Speaker.
Ginoong sponsor, distinguished Congressman Lechon, have we considered and passed a law to protect the right of citizens on these provisions guarantee that the Constitution guarantees human standards, proper environment for detainees in our detention center? Meron na po bang batas na ipasa ang Kongreso along this line? Because it is, a law is required before this provision is given full impact and effects.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. It's quite integrated under the old law, even under the old law, as enacted in December 8 of 1930, particularly the revised penal code, is actually integrated therein that the inmates and detainees, the normal inmates, not the one or the children that we are taking up this day, but as regards the regular inmates in ordinary jails, it is integrated therein the provision that there shall be full protection of our detainees from all harm and for them to be provided for with human living condition.
Masasabi po natin, therefore, that the intention of the Constitution is now in full effect. That should be followed by all detention centers.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Would the gentleman agree that today, even with the constitutional guarantee and the passage of a law, detention centers are actually subhuman standards in many, many cases, practically all, except maybe for a few who are very careful and meticulous in their jail management. Manila, for instance, yan pong city jail natin for 1,100 inmates. Ang nakakulong po dyan ay 6,800. Maraming detention centers, ganun din po ang larawan. So therefore, the problem of detention and detention centers actually is real. Yan po ay pumuputok, punong-puno ng mga detainees who are suffering subhuman treatment and standards, gross violation of our Constitution. Sa makatwid, hindi po natin maaaring ni sa guni-guni
Yes,
ay isama mga bata rito.
definitely, Mr. Speaker.
Kahapon po ay nagbigay ng sponsorship ang ating kagalang-galang na kongresista. Narinig ko po sa kanya, maraming mga provision yung kanyang proposed law which actually address the doubts and the fears and the uncertainties of children getting into detention centers. That in the wrong interpretation of the proposed law today that we are discussing, children may suffer the consequences of the problem of detention centers today, in spite of the constitutional guarantee, in spite of the law that follows the intention of the constitutional provision. Meticulously, he enumerated all the provisions of his proposed law that aims to provide a guarantee to save the child from possible destructive effects. Tama po ba yung impression ko?
Tama po, Mr. Speaker.
Ang tanong ko po therefore ano ang pangangailangan na itong ating pinag-uusapang batas ay ating bigyan ng prioridad. Samantala, ang problema natin ay yung mga detention center, yung ating criminal justice system, the corruption in the PNP, the corruption in the judiciary, the corruption all around us. Yun ang problema, nagpapalala ng ating peace and order conditions. But no, your committee dares stand up and say, ang problema ang mga bata. So I'd like to be enlightened on that, Mr. Speaker. Why are we now starting to think that the children are the problems and not the problems that we have around us regarding detention, punishment, and application of the law?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Congressman Lito Atienza. I would like to answer that into points. Number one, this representation would like to agree with you that more or less, admittedly, there has been problems in several detention centers across the country. And in fact, this was not left unnoticed. At present, the subcommittee on corrections under the House Committee on Justice has been formulating already, in fact, with consultation with the different agencies of the government in order to adjust and at least correct the so many problems besetting our correctional institutions in the country. So I think we should belabor on one important note, and that is what is it at the instance discussion that we're having today. We're having this one as a priority because with or without this bill, we must admit that there has been existence of so many incidents involving children in conflict with law. And despite the passage of Republic Act 9344 in 2006, supposedly to address the problems being given by the previous law. That's why it's high time, I would like to manifest and impress upon all our friends in Congress that I'm not even an author of this bill, but then several authors have filed, and as chair of the Committee on Justice, is my obligation and responsibility. And I take it wholeheartedly after so much reflection. Given the present scenario, as I said, of the surge of criminal incidents involving children in conflict with law, there are so many problems that we seek to address. Number one, the unforeseen event that the care, operation, and maintenance of the youth care facilities as provided for under existing law was given or has been given to several local government units across the nation, particularly in the province and highly urbanized cities. I know our good friend had been the mayor of Manila for quite some time, and so do I in our little city of Calapan. And we know for a fact the limitation as to funding of the annual budget of each local government unit. I think there lies the problem because it's quite apparent that we have been establishing provincial jails, provincial hospitals in so many provinces, and those instances actually deplete the budget of the local government unit. Now, under the assurance of this provision of this amendatory bill, the Congress shall provide for the full implementation of establishing all the youth care facilities, the establishment of the agricultural training centers, the provisions of trained personnel, and in fact, it's our commitment here. In fact, this representation is amenable to concessions, just like of the so many concerns that our other members of Congress raised yesterday regarding pending the full implementation of the infrastructure concerns, the training of personnel, the hiring, the creation of plantilla. All of these will be given effect and be financed regularly under the General Appropriations Act. Many would say that why with special treatment? Because definitely to allay the fears of so many, in fact, I was even surprised that this caught attention nationally because we're dealing with our children. And I also, as a father, would like to emphasize that I think it's justifiable for all of us to give emphasis in order to enable this law to meet the concerns of the prevailing problems involving children in conflict with law. There was surge after the rise of the minimum age from 9 to 15. There have been cases of rape, in fact, more than about 3,000 for the last 5 years, involving about 66,000 crimes for the last 10 years. And it's our principle by all members present here during the time that we pass it. That's our idea that it's very easy to build strong children than repair broken men. It is at this light, Mr. Speaker, that I would like to assure our distinguished gentleman from Buhay Party List that all in the provisions, in fact, we're still being open for concession and amendments in order to further enhance the security and assurance that these children in conflict of law will be fully accorded the attention of the state as provided for under the Constitution, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, that is exactly the reason why I stand up here and I would like to clarify certain issues with the sponsor. He mentioned the provisions, as I heard yesterday, which try to guarantee proper implementation of the law. He seems to be forgetting that the original law, which is 9344, which has been amended immediately, has not even been implemented properly up to now. So he says and stands up and guarantees to us that the provisions of this proposed law will be implemented. Yun ang kanyang agam-agam at sinasagot na rin niya mismo. He knows very well as a father, as a parent, that the children will be in jeopardy if the law is misapplied to anyone. If the government fails to answer and submit to the intentions of the provisions that he has meticulously, conscientiously injected into the letter of the law. Ang tanong ko po, kaya bakit natin ilalagay sa panganib? Why are we putting the children in jeopardy if there are many questions that may remain unacted? Like the provisions that you have stated, the responsibilities of government, I would estimate, will not be delivered at all in the same manner that the guarantees of 9344 have not been delivered up to this point in time. So, if we have an urgent problem, as stated by the gentleman, dumarami ang mga krimen na kinasasangkutan ng mga bata. Yun po ba tama po ba yung narinig ko? Dumarami ang mga krimen na kinasasangkutan ng mga bata.
Opo, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I'd like to put on record that that statement is not supported by the records of the Philippine National Police. I was listening to the spokesman of the PNP yesterday, and he said, kumukunti po ang mga kaso na kinasasangkutan ng mga bata. And I could not help but worry. My colleague may have a different set of records other than the PNP. The Philippine National Police says, hindi dumadami, kumukunti. Ang sabi ng ating sponsor, dumarami. Ano po ba ang inyong pananaw doon?
With all due respect, Mr. Speaker, and to our good Congressman Lito Atienza, I beg to disagree. Because it should be read in the whole context of the statement. For
renting. People got held up in buses, in jeepneys, in the sidewalks of the country. So therefore, yung sinasabi niyang record, we agree with that. Pero pababa na ang record ngayon. Undeniably, and we cannot help but believe the police saying, the crimes are going down, especially crimes where children are involved. So the downtrend has started. Why are we now rushing a law that could jeopardize the future of this nation? Remember, if children get traumatized today by the inadequate judicial reforms and judicial system that we are employing, they will carry the permanent damage on their generation. We will have a set of Filipinos who are more acceptable to criminality and the commission of crimes rather than a society that will give everybody a decent, peaceful, and progressive Philippines. The danger, therefore, of involving the children in the criminal world is far greater than the imagined intention of our members, some of our members who sponsored this measure, stating that this is the only solution. There are many solutions, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned earlier, reformahin muna natin yung ating judicial system. Ikulong muna natin yung mga judges na nabibili. Alisin muna natin sa serbisyo yung mga pulis na umaareglo ng kaso. And those who are using the children in the commission of their crimes should be punished to the full. Prison mayor, lifetime imprisonment, let's maximize the punishment for any syndicate exploiting the innocence of the children and the poverty that they are soaked in today. Kaya sumasali ang mga batang yan sa mga ganyang klaseng gawain, bibigyan ng pera, papapasukin sa bahay, pabubuksan yung main gate, hold upin yung bahay. Maraming paraan ang paggamit sa kawalang malay ng bata. It only shows that children are not set yet on their mental capacity because of their young age. Experts, and I have volumes of studies of experts saying the full development of a person's mental capacity starts at 15 onwards. Not at 9. 9, wala pa po tayong inisip ng mga panahong 9 years old tayo, kundi kumain, makapiling ng magulang, maglaro, mag-aral, magdasal, kumain uli, matulog. Hindi tayo nag-iisip ng masyadong maraming bagay sapagkat wala pa roon ang ating mental capacity. So the shock that is given me in this proposed law is why would we even consider trying to whatever we say as the crime situation, putting the blame on the children. E yan po ay palagay ko to say the least. Hindi lamang distorted yan, misoriented, and doesn't make sense at all. Ang sabi nga ng mga marami ngayon, usapan ito sa ating mga plaza, sa ating mga palengke. Ang kongresong ito, hindi na namin maintindihan. Bakit yung mga bata ay ikukulong? Yung mga masasamang tao, ang dapat ninyong ikulong at huwag nang palabasin. Meron pa nagsasabi, again, we are all hurt by this statement. The politicians are the ones who should be jailed, not the children. So therefore, the dangers on the children and the future of this nation are real. And that's the reason why people are speaking. Nagsasalita na ngayon ang ating mga mamamayan ng kanilang damdamin. Hindi na sila kimi, sapagkat kung mali, mali. At ang sigaw ng bayan ngayon, mali itong proposed law na ito na hindi makakatulong, bagkus ito'y makakasama. I'm appealing to my colleagues, to all of you. You are parents, grandparents, and you are all responsible, patriotic elected officials of the land. Let's reject this law because it will not do good to the children of families. The Philippines is the only country where families are still solid. Let us not destroy it with this kind of a proposed law. Pag naging reality po ito, the burden of government failing in its duty, abusing its power, a Congress that fails in its duties, tayo po ang papasan nun. Let us not succumb to any pressure. Let us use our free will and wisdom and love of country and fear of God, that children are the most sacred of all sectors of society. Kung nagkakamali, tingnan natin, pag-aralan natin, bakit nagkakamali. Pero huwag yung nating isali sila sa mundo ng mga kriminal na dapat nating nilalabanan. With that, Mr. Speaker, I hope the gentleman will not take it personal, but this law is one of the worst, pinakamasamang batas na nakita ko dito sa ating Kongreso ngayon. May panahon pa para ito hindi mangyari. Huwag nating suportahan ito, huwag ninyong iboto ito, kundi sisisihin kayo ng kanya-kanyang pamilya. And with God's grace and support, we shall be enlightened. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize our next interpellator, the Honorable Mayo Almario of the 2nd District of Davao Oriental. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Almario, second next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have a few questions, Your Honor, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. But let me start with the age as prescribed in the bill, which is 9 years. Do I understand it right, Mr. Speaker, that in Republic Act number 9344, the age mentioned in that act is 12 years old, and in Republic Act 10630, it was raised to 15 years old.
Mr. Speaker, to answer the query of Congressman Almario, for the record, the history of criminal justice system in the Philippines as regards the penalty, from December 8 of 1930, when the revised penal code was enacted into law, up to 2006, more or less about 76 years, the original minimum age of criminal responsibility was 9. And then it was increased in 2006 to 15. Now the proposed Bill 6 for the reversion to the original, Mr. Speaker.
And what was the mindset of the authors of this bill by putting it down now to 9 years old? Let me just go on to my next question, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Because the answer will be related to it anyway. Is that the age specified by psychologists, by experts on this field, as the age of discernment?
Number one, yes. And number two, the authors feel it better if there will just be reversion to the original age of minimum age of social responsibility at 9. And also based on data that, as I said, there was increase or surge of criminal incidents involving minors, that prompted the 5 authors to file the respective bill to the Committee on Justice.
Okay. Well, in my mind, Mr. Speaker, I would believe that the more appropriate age would be 12 years old. In other words, I agree with the intent of the bill, but I do not agree with the age of 9 years old.
As I said before, Mr. Speaker, in recent interpellations that I had with the different esteemed members of Congress, the Committee on Justice does not own the monopoly of good judgment. We do voted for this bill, but if there's a proposal for any compromise to that effect to a certain age, this representation in behalf of the Committee on Justice will always be subservient to the will of the majority. If the will of majority wishes to increase it to a certain level, as long as that is the collective judgment of each member of this Congress, who am I to refuse the decision and wisdom of the majority of the members of this Congress?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, one very important feature of this bill is the establishments of Bahay Pag-asa. And as it says here, it is the key in order to be the key for this act to be sustainable. Now, Mr. Speaker, first I agree that in my district, when the age was increased to 15, the observation was that dumadami na dumadami ang mga kabataan below 15 years old na nasasangkot sa krimen. And that has been expressed many times during the period of this interpellation. And I would like to put on record that it is also happening in my district. In fact, my constituents would like this bill to be enacted into law. Now, ito na ang susi, Bahay Pag-asa. If this bill, Mr. Speaker, will be enacted, will be approved by the House of Representatives, will be approved by the Senate, will be enacted into law, IRR will come out in 90 days, if I'm not mistaken, and then this bill will, the act, the Republic Act will now be operationalized. So magkakahulihan na ng mga kabataan sa iba't ibang parte ng buong bansa na who will qualify under this act? If it will be raised to 12 years old, so yung mga 12 years old. Meron ba tayong sapat na dami ng bahay pag-asa?
As of this moment, per data that was submitted to us, out of the 80 provinces across the nation, there are about 58 bahay pag-asa in operation and 5 still inoperative.
Mr. Speaker, I represent the 2nd District of Davao Oriental. May I know if there's a bahay pag-asa anywhere in my district? Because I will be answerable to them. When I go home this Thursday, they will ask me, oh, ang ganda ng bill nyo. Pero saan yung bahay pag-asa?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. In fact, as I said yesterday, we're amenable to the provision because there should be a transitory provision for this one. For example, if there's an existing bahay pag-asa, then the law shall be ineffective or otherwise shall be released in recognizance to his parents. But then the state has the obligation in a certain period under the General Appropriations Act to complete the facilities within a year. And by then, it shall be in full force together with the trained personnel. And by that time, then they can already accommodate. But in the meantime, that we have yet, there should be a transitory provision to that effect that any wishes of any member, but in practice, I have actually conversed with more than 20 prosecutors already, and I inquired what was happening or what has been happening for quite some time, and it has been said that they usually release these minors in recognizance. But then there has been problems because more often than not, the cases have been piling up because without reformation being given to the children in conflict with law, they continue to commit crimes again and again. So I think that's the very purpose and motivation why this bill is being sought to be approved in order to cure out the existing problems besetting in respective localities across the nation, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I truly agree with the intent of the bill, with the explanation of the sponsor. I'm just very worried that when this bill becomes a Republic Act and in 90 days the IRR will come out and there will now be apprehensions. That's why I want to be very specific, in concrete. Pag walang bahay pag-asa, saan dadalhin yung nahuling minor?
Yeah.
The LGU doesn't have it. Mr. Speaker, in fact, I would like to ask the sponsor if it is possible. Mr. Sponsor, is it possible to enact a bill into law and the effectivity of that law will start 1 year after? Because if that is possible, you might as well think of it that when the effectivity of this bill will finally come, all the bahay pag-asas will already be in place. Kasi if we talk about the General Appropriations Act, you cannot find that in the proposed 2019 GAA.
If that is a question, that is precisely okay because even under the Civil Code of the Philippines, there are two ways in which effectivity of laws can be made. Number one, when it's specifically stated under the law, and second, 15 days after the publication of the law in general circulation. But then we can also add a specific provision in the current bill that we're seeking to pass, that in the meantime that the bahay pag-asa is being constructed or being
Or the source of funds is
established.
being sought for.
The source of funds is actually in the bill. But then if I may say, if you're saying that one, we can make, based on tradition being practiced by several prosecutors in different jurisdictions, and that is to release these minors or these children in conflict with law on recognizance of the parents. So, but then, in fact, after the establishment, then mandatory that we will operate the Bahay Pag-asa.
I don't think it will be wise to go to that option to release these children to the parents. In the first place, that's why these children are in conflict with the laws, because they lack supervision from their parents. So, but you mentioned also earlier, Mr. Speaker, that the source of fund is mentioned in the bill. May I know what section of the bill speaks of the source of fund for the establishment of the Bahay Pag-asa? And corollary to that, I'd like to know, Mr. Speaker, how much does it cost to operate a Bahay Pag-asa? Because it is not only the building, but it is also and I quote the bill itself, a multidisciplinary team composed of a social worker, a psychologist, mental health professional, a medical doctor, an educational guidance counselor, and a barangay council for the protection of children. Unquote. Now, if we talk about medical doctors, the provincial hospitals, the city hospitals, municipal hospitals, right now are already lacking in medical doctor for the reason that, as they always say, walang pondo sa pag-hire. But now here we are talking about Bahay Pag-asa, which by this bill, it should be mandatory that it has a medical doctor. So, where in this bill does it state that there is a source of fund already for the establishment, for the operation of a Bahay Pag-asa, and how much would that be, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, number one, it's very clear here that some other Bahay Pag-asa have been operated by local government units. Number two, it's quite clear, apparent also that there's instruction. In fact, the DSWD has the immediate obligation to submit how much. But then if the good congressman is asking for the particular provision, it is cited under Section 13 of the amendatory bill, and it is said that the funding necessary for the establishment and continued operation of Bahay Pag-asa by the DSWD shall be included in the budget of the DSWD in the General Appropriations Act. It's a very, very clear provision cited in the amendatory bill that is being discussed today.
Exactly, Mr. Speaker, but the approved proposed 2019 budget of DSWD does not contain this. So for the meantime, where will it be? Where will the funding come from? Because we have already approved the proposed budget, but it does not contain this. Now, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, will be all right with the sponsor if somewhere along this bill we also put a section that PAGCOR must earmark some funds for the construction of Bahay Pag-asa, so that we will already be halfway there.
No problem, Mr. Speaker. I am perfectly amenable to the wishes of the good congressman.
Now, let me, after the Bahay Pag-asa concern, Mr. Speaker, let me also ask a few more questions on some other provisions, sections of this bill. Section 3. The parent, and I quote, the parent, guardian, or foster parent with custody over the child shall likewise undergo intervention programs, including parenting seminars and counseling, so on and so forth. Now, comparing that with Section Section 7, Mr. Speaker, that, and I quote, parents of children who committed any of the serious crimes under Section 20A of this Act and of children who are repeat offenders under Section 20B of this Act shall undergo mandatory intervention. That's the only point I'd like to raise, Mr. Speaker. Why is it? Well, it's obvious why it's mandatory in Section 7, but why is it not mandatory under Section 3?
Because for the information of our colleagues in Congress, yun po yung gusto nating linawin. Wala pong incarceration at imprisonment itong batas na ito. That's why I call it a pro-child legislation. Una ho, pagka ang isang bata in conflict with the law ay nakagawa, and is a petty offense, wala pong confinement yan. Nagkakaroon lang po ng confinement sa tatlong pamamaraan. Una, pagka ang bata na nakagawa ng krimen ay nakakommit ng serious offenses. Exclusive po ito, 10 lang. Robbery, parricide, murder, homicide, carnapping, serious illegal detention, rape with homicide, rape with robbery with rape, carnapping, and violation for the Dangerous Drugs Act. Malinaw naman po na serious offenses to, kaya mandatory ang confinement. But nakalagay rin po, bakit ito child-friendly pa rin? Dahil po sa loob ng 1 taon, ang ating mga local social welfare and the multidisciplinary team composed of doctors, nurses, guidance counselor will just submit a progress report sa judge. And if the judge is more or less satisfied na nakapagkumpleto, ang bata pong ito ay pwedeng bumalik sa kanyang pamilya. Kasama ho na nagkaroon ng intervention program ang kanyang magulang. So that's the first instance when confinement is mandatory under the present amendatory bill. Number 2, pag wala pong mga magulang yung mga bata in conflict with law. Rather than pakalat-kalat sa karsada, it would be better for the child to be confined in a youth care institution. At ang pangatlo, even for petty offense, pero paulit-ulit na ginagawa. Katulad po yung isa kong na-interview na piskal, ang kanyang karanasan, 11 years old, 17 beses nagnakaw ng cellphone. So pag recidivist ka, serious offense at walang magulang, that's the only time. But for any other offenses, wala pong confinement. And that makes this legislation a as I said, if some others would claim the opposite, I would say this is a pro-child legislative measure that we are proposing.
Mr. Speaker, the 2 sections I cited does not talk of confinement as far as the parents of the children are concerned. It's just a mandatory intervention.
Dahil po the law speaks for itself. Dahil serious offenses, kaya mandatory din para sa mga magulang.
Kaya nga, kung pwede natin lagay dito, kahit hindi yung serious offenses, mandatory intervention pa rin.
Wala hong problema. Wala pong problema sa atin yun.
As they always say, Mr. Speaker, kaya nga yung batang menor de edad na sangkot sa mga violations of the law, naging children in conflict with the law because of the lack of intervention and supervision of the parents. Kaya dapat managot yung mga parents sa mga batang to. So let's also make it mandatory that they attend these kinds of intervention programs, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I am amenable with that, Mr. Speaker.
Now, meantime, na ginagawa yung mga intervention program for the children and for the parents, what happens to the school days of the parents, of the children kung nag-aaral siya sa isang eskwelahan? And what happens to the working days of the parents kung nagtatrabaho naman siya sa isang trabahuan, sa opisina, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, malinaw po ron na part of the intervention program is establishment also like of informal schools. Depende ko kung kukunti lang, we can create the formation of the alternative learning schools para po sa mga bata, para hindi napapabayaan ang kanilang pag-aaral in the meantime that they are confined at a youth reformation facility.
Now, another concern on budget source, Mr. Speaker, is found in Section 14 of the amendatory bill where it says that the DSWD, in partnership with the Bucor, shall establish at least 2 agricultural camps, each in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. The DSWD, in partnership with TESDA, shall likewise establish at least 2 training facilities, each in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Pondo na naman, Mr. Speaker. Meron na ba itong pondo para sa mga establishment ng agricultural camps and training facilities, and also the geographical location? I could imagine perhaps 1 agricultural camp and 1 training facility will be in Davao. But what about those who are in conflict with the law, who come from far places? Will they will be brought to Davao, Mr. Speaker, but what about the distance that is being created between them and the parents?
It will be treated in the same way, in the same way that you asked for the funding. We will be funding these agricultural training centers also. Of course, in due consideration of the geographical area also, Mr. Speaker.
No, Mr. Speaker, isang tanong na lang. Yung riot-riot ba ng kabataan, yung gangwar-gangwar na usong-uso sa probinsya, usually mga 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, 15 anyos, kasama ba dito yan?
Pag hindi ho siya, if he belongs to the exemption of age, hindi siya kasama. Pero halimbawa, yung 8 years old nakapatay, absolute ang exemption yun from any social responsibility. Kung ikaw na may nakapatay, kahit anong gawin nating riot ng mga bata, nakapatay ka, kasalanan pa rin yun. And that is actually covered under this one.
Now, the final question, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. I just would like to get the idea of the Honorable Liachon. Lahat naman to nasa barangay, di ba? What would you think if we include among those accountable, the elected punong barangay?
Mahirap naman na maging accountable siya kung wala siyang kilalaman sa mga pangyayari. Of course, the immediate parental or solidary liability shall always pertain to the parents under the principle of parents padre. It's the responsibility of the state. So, with the parents to discipline your children. Mapakahirap naman ho sa kapitan na hindi naman niya alam yung pangyayari. Unless the criminal incidents happened in his own eyes and tolerated the happening of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Sponsor, thank you very much.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, may I acknowledge the presence of the delegation for the Poland-Philippines Parliamentary Friendship Group. They are here to visit the House of Representatives, and they are parliamentarians from Poland. May I acknowledge Honorable Bozjana Bokiewicz, the chairperson, Honorable Andrzej Maszewski, Vice Chairman, Honorable Mirosława Nykiel, Member, Honorable Arthur Zasada, Member, Mr. Jarosław Ispankiewicz, Ambassador-Designate, Charge d'Affaires, Embassy of the Republic of Poland in Manila, Ms. Paulina Rasninkanska, Delegation Secretary, Ms. Joanna Waszewska, Charge d'Affaires, Embassy of the Republic of Poland in Manila. They are also visitors of Representative Baby Arenas, Mr. Speaker.
We welcome you to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we checked some of the facts with the Secretariat in connection with House Bill number 8858. It appears, Mr. Speaker, that there were already speakers for the measure satisfying the requirement under Section 54 of our rules, and more than 2 speakers who spoke against the measure, also more than satisfying the requirement. Because of this, Mr. Speaker,
Point of order,
I
Mr.
move
Speaker.
to close the
Point of
debate
order, Mr. Speaker.
of the measure, House
of
Bill
order.
8858. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Point
Is
of
there any
order.
objection? Chair is none. Same is approved.
Point of order. Mr.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I
Mr.
stand with the
Speaker,
motion.
Point of order.
Those
Mr.
who are in
Speaker.
favor of the motion
Mr.
to
Speaker,
close
I
the
have a
debate will
point of
say
order.
aye, and those
My
who
motion takes
are against will say
precedence
nay.
over the
So move, Mr. Speaker.
motion
There is a
of the
motion to
majority
approve.
leader. Mr. Speaker, I'm raising a point of order.
The
Mr. Speaker,
aforementioned
I have-
House
Mr.
Bill.
Speaker, I am raising a point of
All
order
those
which
who are
takes
in favor,
precedence
please say aye.
over the motion.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. The ayes have
naman
it.
to eh.
The House Bill now
May
is
rules
approved on
tayo
second
eh.
reading.
Motion to suspend, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended. I-clarify. Session is assumed. Majority Leader, what is
Mr.
the
Speaker.
parliamentary status of the bill?
Mr. Speaker, to clarify, what we had is a motion to close the debate. And so, as already ruled by the Speaker, those who said aye were in favor of closing the debate. That was the ruling, Mr. Speaker. Only to close the debate. We are not yet beginning with the amendments, Mr. Speaker, because we are still waiting for the copies to be distributed on the floor.
Okay. We proceed. Majority
Mr.
Leader.
Speaker, I move to suspend the consideration of 8858.
Please proceed, Majority Leader.
And I move that we take up House Bill 6517. This is providing compassionate and right of access to medical cannabis and expanding research into medical properties. Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider House Bill number 6517 and the report number 402. And may we direct the Secretary General to read the title of the said measure.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. Secretary General is so directed.
House Bill 6517, an act providing compassionate and right of access to medical cannabis and expanding research into its medicinal properties.
Period of amendment yet?
Majority Leader.
We are in period of amendment. Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status of this bill is that we are in the period of amendments. I move that we recognize the Honorable Representative from the 1st District of Isabela, Honorable Rodolfo T. Albano III, Principal Author of House Bill number 6517, to sponsor the measure. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The Honorable Albano is recognized.
Wala na?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Is there any amendments? There's no amendments. I move that we close the period of amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Majority leader, hindi ka pwede mag-move. Sponsor ka eh.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we close the period of committee amendments.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The same is approved. Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, considering that there are no amendments,
9
I
years
move that
old,
we vote
gamit ng cannabis.
the said bill.
Close.
Mr. Speaker, may I reframe that? Mr. Speaker, last Tuesday, January 15, 2019, we have distributed to all members copies of the substitute version of House Bill 6517. And pursuant to Section 104 of our rules, I move to amend by substitution the entire bill as contained in Committee Report 402 with the contents of the substitute version earlier distributed to all members. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on, that we now may we now open the period of individual amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who registered to propose individual amendments, I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we now vote on second reading House Bill number 6517 as amended.
There's a motion. There's a motion to approve House Bill 6517 as amended. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those who are against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill number 6517 as amended is approved on second reading.
Mr. Speaker, I move to resume consideration of House Bill number 8858.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status is that we have already terminated the sponsorship and debate. Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we close the period of committee amendments.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, just earlier we have distributed to all members copies of the substitute version of House Bill 8858. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Section 104 of our rules, particularly second paragraph thereof, I move to amend by substitution the entire bill as contained in the Committee Report 1071 with the contents of the substitute version earlier distributed to all members. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
may this representation be recognized, Mr. Speaker, before we go
The Honorable
on?
Chairman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, recognize the sponsor of the measure, the Honorable Doyle Achol.
I think as I was furnished with the substituted bill, and of course, this is actually a vital or a milestone departure from the original bill that was filed. So if I may say, for the information of everyone, I would like to verify it, Mr. Speaker, if this is about the age. May I request the Majority Leader to read first the departure of the age from the age of 9 to 12.
Majority Leader.
just for the clear information of everyone.
Mr. Speaker, may I reiterate the previous motion? Pursuant to Section 104 of our rules, particularly the second paragraph thereof, I move to amend by substitution the entire bill as contained in Committee Report 1071, with the contents of the substitute version earlier distributed to all members. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. Same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of individual amendments.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same approved.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to make an omnibus motion to delete the word social in sections 2 and 3 of House Bill number 8858, found in page 2, line 16 and line 42, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who registered to propose individual amendments, I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we now vote on second reading House Bill number 8858 as amended.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 8858 as amended. All those in favor, please say aye.
Objection.
All those against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8858 is approved on second reading.
I move for 1 minute suspension.
Session suspended.
Ricky.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, under the calendar of business, I move for the consideration of House Bill number 8833 as contained in Committee Report number 1055. And for this purpose, may I move for the Secretary General to read the title of the bill. 8833.
Is there any objection? Secretary General is directed.
House Bill 8833, an act establishing and constructing a hospital for the Philippine Coast Guard, its personnel, employees, their dependents, and the retired uniformed personnel, to be known as the Philippine Coast Guard General Hospital, and appropriating funds therefor.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the sponsor of the said measure, the Honorable Ricky Sandoval of the Lone District of Navotas. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Sandoval is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to sponsor House Bill creating the Philippine Coast Guard General Hospital for the consideration of our members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Boss. Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that my sponsorship, my comments on the bill be considered as my sponsorship speech. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no members who wishes to interpolate, I move that we close the period of interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of individual amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no members.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
excuse me.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Leader.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Edgar Sarmiento for
Honorable
his amendment. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sarmiento is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have some amendments. That is, if the author accepts some amendment to the proposed House bill.
Certainly will, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to introduce some amendment. This is on page 2, section 5, lines 19 and 20. To have an efficient administration, may I propose some amendment? On lines 19, may I request the author if he can delete Secretary of Health as an ex officio chairperson, and
I
of
agree,
course,
Mr. Speaker.
the Secretary of Transportation as an ex officio vice chairperson.
What
Can we
does the-
delete?
What
Agree,
does the
Mr.
sponsor
Speaker.
say?
I agree, Mr. Speaker.
And rather than the Secretary of Health and the Secretary of Transportation as chairpersons and vice chairperson, may I introduce that the Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard should serve as the chairperson. Are you acceptable to the
I agree, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker? And further, Mr. Speaker, can we designate the Deputy Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard as the vice chairperson?
Agree, Mr. Speaker.
Can I introduce, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, new members over and above the Command Surgeon of the Philippine Coast Guard as member? May I introduce the following as member as well? That the Commander of the Philippine Coast Guard Medical Service will become a member. That the Commander of the Philippine Coast Guard Nurse Corps should become a member as well. And the Commander of the Philippine Coast Guard Legal Service as an additional member. And finally, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, the Deputy Chief of Coast Guard Staff for Human Resource and Management as member as well.
Mr. Speaker, I agree to all the amendments as introduced by the Honorable Sarmiento.
That's all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
What does the
Mr. Sponsor.
majority say about the amendment?
Mr. Speaker, I join the sponsor and accept all the amendments. Mr. Speaker, I move that there being no other individual amendment, I move that we close the period of individual amendments. So move.
Any objection? There's none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of committee amendments. So move.
Any objection? Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no more committee amendments or individual amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill number 8833. So move.
There's a motion to approve House Bill number 8833. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8833 is so approved on second reading.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. And the Philippine Coast Guard is now a step closer to having their own hospital. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider on second reading House Bill number 8861 contained in Committee Report 1072, and may we request the Secretary General to read the title of the measure. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary General is so directed.
House Bill 8861, an act extending the period for the grant of incentives to tourism enterprise zones and registered tourism enterprises, amending for this purpose Republic Act number 9593, otherwise known as the Tourism Act of 2009.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the author of, or the sponsor of the said bill, the Honorable Jocelyn Lim Kai Chong.
The Honorable Lee Kam Chiang is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, move to adopt the explanatory note as the sponsorship speech.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpolate, I move that we close the period of interpolation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no individual member who wishes to introduce amendments, I move to close the period of individual amendments. So move.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to vote on second reading House Bill number 8861. So move.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 8861. All those in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8861 is now approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to consider on second reading House Bill number 8837 contained in Committee Report 1057, and may we request the Secretary General to read the title of the measure. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary General is so directed.
House Bill 8837, an act creating the National Commission of Senior Citizens, providing for its functions, abolishing the National Coordinating Council and Monitoring Board, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 7432 as amended, appropriating funds therefore.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Representative Michael Velarde, the Chairman of Government Reorganization Committee and sponsor of the said measure. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Velarde is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I move to adopt the explanatory note as the sponsorship speech?
Is there any objection? The chair is none. Same is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of interpellation. So move.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpolate, I move that we close the period of interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of committee amendment. So move.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we close the period of committee amendments and open the period of individual amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no individual amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill number 8837 contained in Committee Report 1057. So move, Mr.
There's a
Speaker.
motion to approve House Bill 8837. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8837 is now approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to consider on second reading House Bill number 8862 contained in Committee Report 1073. May we request the Secretary General to read the title of the said measure. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary General is directed, is so directed.
House Bill 8862, an act providing benefits and programs to strengthen, promote, and develop the Philippine startup ecosystem.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Yul Servo of Manila to sponsor the said measure. So move.
The Honorable Yul Servo is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, nais ko lang po i-manifest yung maging speech po yung explanatory note po.
Majority Leader. Is there any objection? Chair is none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of interpellation. So move.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpellate, I move that we close the period of interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of committee amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we close the period of committee amendments and open the period of individual amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no individual amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill 8862. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 8862. All those in favor, please say aye. All against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8862 is now approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we take up business for Thursday and Friday. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. Same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the omnibus approval on second reading of the following local bills. House Bill number 8835, contained in Committee Report 1056. House Bill 8846, contained in Committee Report 1061. House Bill 8847, contained in Committee Report 1062. House Bill number 8848, contained in Committee Report number 1063. House Bill number 8149, contained in Committee Report 1064. House Bill 8854, contained in Committee Report 1069. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading the aforementioned local bills. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to approve House Bill 8835, 8846, 8847, 8848, 8149, and 8854. All those in favor, please say aye. All against, please say nay. The ayes have it. The aforementioned House Bill are now approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, just to acknowledge the guests of the Honorable Tomasito Villarin of the Akbayan Party List, members of Child Rights Network, who are in the gallery with us today.
The guests of the Honorable Villarin, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Motion to suspend, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended.
Galing nyo naman. Kasako lang. Galing-galing.
Session is resumed.
Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of the bicameral conference committee report of the disagreeing revisions of House Bill number 8628, transferring the Philippine National Police Academy, or PNPA, and the National Police Training Institute, or the NPTI, from the Philippine Public Safety College to the Philippine National Police. This is House Bill number 8628 and Senate Bill number 1898. And in accordance with the rules, I move that we ratify the said bicameral conference committee report. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The same is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the election of the representatives, Representative Ulysses Garces as additional member of the following committees: the Committee on Agriculture and Food, the Committee on Economic Affairs, Committee on Games and Amusements, Vice Representative Rodel Batocabe, Committee on Legislative Franchises, Vice Representative Rodel Batocabe, and the Committee on Trade and Industry. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The same is approved. Majority Leader.
Motion to suspend, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Hindi yan na-approve kanina, adjourn. So we have to defer. So we have to defer approval.
Please proceed, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we adjourn session until Monday, January 28 at 3 o'clock p.m. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Session is adjourned until Monday, January 28 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.